Well, hello and welcome to Jamie TV, 100% live on YouTube. Welcome to another Cubasis 3 live stream. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Samuel. Hi, Mateus. Hi, Semtex. Thanks for being here. In this stream, which I believe is the seventh one I've done because I have done Cubasis workshops before. But not for quite some time. So in this run, I think this is number 7, and I'm going to keep going as long as the questions keep coming in, and as long as I think I've got something useful to say. So speaking of that, if you have any questions at all, if there's anything you would like to know about Cubasis 3, then by all means throw your questions in the chat or comment below the video or contact me privately. All of my contact information is down below the video, where you will also find links where you can contribute to the channel, where you can help to support what I'm doing here, if you so wish, but absolutely no pressure. If you do wish to, then my preferred ways are you can either purchase some of my music on Bandcamp. Or you can, because on Bandcamp I get almost every penny that you spend. And the other way, probably the best way actually, is Patreon, because on Patreon it gives me the best chance to give back to you. You get a lot for a very, very small amount of money. And at the moment on my Patreon, I've just finished a track. It's more or less mixed and just needs mastering, and then I'm going to release it. Now, every week on my Patreon, I do a live stream. In the UK, it's like 12 o'clock lunchtime on a Friday, when I just make some music live and just chat to whoever turns up. And, you know, we have coffee, we have a laugh, we make music. Now, I've just finished making a chill wave track. So on my Patreon account at the moment, I am asking people, what kind of a track would you like me to make next? At the moment, a disco track is what's winning. So if you're one of my patrons, or if you'd like to join my Patreon account, then you can join and you can have your say, and then you can join me every Friday lunchtime when I just make music and answer questions, and we have a bit of a giggle. Now, this evening, apparently, I'm clashing with some very important football game. I wouldn't know. I don't follow football anymore. For me, if there's one thing guaranteed to break your heart, even more than trying to make a living in the music business, it's got to be actually giving a shit about football. Don't ruin it. Vote for the grooves. Oh yeah, and Mateus wants me to include some vocoder. If I'm honest with you, at the moment, I'm really struggling with my voice. I mean, you know, I really, really enjoy making instrumental music, actually. I do sing. I'm not the greatest singer in the world. If you've heard any of my vocal tracks, you will know that. But I do like a good sing, but at the moment, for quite a few weeks now, I've really been struggling with my voice. I've just got a sore throat all the time. I'm seeing the doctor. Don't know what the reason for that is yet. So maybe some vocoder vocals would actually be in order. Anyway, we must crack on. I've got some stuff to get through for you this evening. I'm going to start off with a few top tips. I've not got a Microfreak Semtex. I've looked at them. I almost bought one actually a few months ago, but I decided to get, I bought the Poly 800 instead, because I had one when I was a kid and I wanted to have one again. I really regretted selling it. So yeah, I've looked at Microfreaks. I'm not sure it's the synth for me, really. Anyway, right, so let's go to a different view. Let's go to this view and we will have a look at tip number 1. Right, top tip number 1 is Notepad, and not so much the fact that it's there, but how I use it. Let me just move this computer mouse out of my way so that I don't actually accidentally press that one. Right, Okay, so mouse, do your thing. You'll see here I have some chords on this track, on this very, very nice sound, which is one of the Neo FM sounds, which is an in-app purchase from the Cubasis shop. There it is. It's quite a nice sound, isn't it? Right, so what was I on about? Oh yeah, the Notepad. Right, now, if you go to this, the tabs down the side of Cubasis here, you'll see there's one called Notepad. And in Notepad here, let me just go to a different view so that you can maybe see this slightly clearer. Let's make it all big, missus. We've got some chords written down here in Notepad. Now in Notepad here, you can use it for whatever you wish. You can write anything you like there. You know, you can write your magnificent octopus in there if you want. What I do very often is I will write my chord progression in Notepad, because you know what happens. You know, you're fooling around in your DAW and you come up with a great idea, and you've got 8 bars of awesomeness going on, and it's a really promising project. And then life happens and you have to do other things, and when you come back to it, you can't remember for the life of you what chords you used. So then you have to waste time figuring out what the chords are. So if you just write them down in Notepad, just take a little bit of time, write them down in Notepad, and you come back to your project, it can be years later when you're looking through your media bay, and you go, oh yeah, I started a project, I never finished it, let's have a look at it. You open it up, it sounds great, you want to carry it on, you go to Notepad, you know what the chords are straight away, and you crack on. It needs a nice softening reverb, it's harsh on its own. Yes, I see that, but there's a reason. These sounds are not sort of finished sounds. We're going to play with these sounds today. So this opening piece is not supposed to be the best thing you ever heard. It's just supposed to be a really good vehicle for what I'm going to show you today. Right, tip number 2, bars and time. This is simple as anything. Just here, and I was surprised to realize just how few people know this about Cubasis. In this window here, it tells you what bar you are on. So right at the moment, at the beginning of this loop, I'm starting from bar 11 because I always leave 10 bars free, just in case I have an awesome idea for an intro and I want to extend the beginning of a track. And just close up Notepad there. Actually, I should have shown you. Let's just go back to Notepad for a moment. If you just click in here, then it opens up like this, like a full page, and you can type away in here. I should have shown you that. Right, so bars and time. If I press here, you'll see it changes the view in that window to seconds, minutes and seconds and all that business. Now if you're writing a track and you're trying to write a track that's a specific length, like let's say you're writing some music to go with some video, which is something I've started to do quite a lot, really enjoy doing it, then you're going to need to know exactly what length the piece is, and time codes are going to be really helpful to you. Also, if you're writing a song, you might want to keep it under a certain length. If you're trying to write a magnificent hit single, you probably want to keep it within a few minutes. What's supposed to be the ideal length of time for a hit single? It's like under 3 minutes or something. Oh, hey Doug, thanks for being here. Yes, Notepad is incredibly useful. The scraps of paper thing, I mean, I've got the Darth Vader book, right? And I write all sorts of things in here. All just like all that stuff that you might forget. So in here, there's loads of chords, there's ideas for videos, there's things I need to remember to include in videos. There's things like when I'm doing a live stream and I need to write a few things down that I need to remember to do. like to run an ad. Would you believe that I've done 12 live streams in a row and every single time forgot to run an ad? There's no wonder I don't make any money out of YouTube. Right? All kinds of stuff like this, but in all honesty, if I transfer these chords for the tracks that I'm working on into Notepad, it makes an awful lot of sense later, because, when I'm working on my iPad when I'm out on the road, very often I've not got the Darth Vader book with me, so it becomes useless. Right, so, So, bars and time is as simple as that, really. Nothing more to it. And as you can see, the time ticks away there as you play your track. Now, let's just unsolo that track. Now, what about follow? Let's just do this. I'll make sure that my track is off the edge of the screen. Right, so we're zoomed in real close. Watch what happens. Alright, so the playhead has moved off of the screen, and now we can't see the playhead. We can't follow the track. Follow is just here. Click that in. And it moves along with the track. Now here's the thing about the follow button. If you touch the screen whilst the track is playing, if you touch the screen, watch what happens to the follow button. It switches it off. For some reason. I don't know why. This is one of the requests that I've made to Steinberg multiple times, and they don't seem to agree with me, but I think that the follow button should stay pressed in regardless, until you switch it off. Why would it not? In fact, why would you switch it off? It's just my thoughts. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts on that are. Can you zero the clock? No, you can't zero the clock, because the clock is like starting, like 0 is over here at bar 1, right? So you just have to, if you wanted to know how long your track is, well, right here, I'm starting at bar 11 where it says 24 seconds. So you just have to deduct 24 seconds from the time that it shows when you get to the end of the track. I think I explained that correctly. It might be nice, actually, if you could zero the clock from where you start. That might be a nice little feature, and it could be like minus numbers back here from before where you consider your track to officially start. That could be. Yeah, actually, that's quite interesting. Oh, I should write that down. Where's my delicate giant's pen? Hang on a second, I've got to write that down. Okay, time code thing. Right, okay. I'm going to email Steinberg about that tomorrow. I think that's a great idea. Well done, Semtex. Right, now, what is next? I think I finished talking about follow, didn't I? Because all you have to do, if that happens, if you press, right, you've got follow on. You touch your screen, it comes off. You just have to reactivate it. That's it. Yeah, a long press on the clock, and it could give you some options. That's a great idea. I like that. Okay, another tip. I think we'll make this the last tip for this particular stream. Add an instrument to a group track. Okay, so somebody in one of the Cubasis groups that I look after on Facebook pointed out to me that when you add a group track, so let's do that just to demonstrate very professionally. So I'll go to add down here, and I'll go to group. Now it asks me at this point which of my tracks I want to add to that group, and I just select which ones I want to add to it, and job done. I don't want a group track, I don't want to add any to it, so I'll delete that. Oh, no, I can't actually if I'm going to demonstrate this. Stupid hippie. Let's go to undo, right? So we'll put that group track back. Now, this guy pointed out to me that if at a later stage you add another track to your project and you decide you want to send that to your group track, it's awkward to know where you go to do that. So what you do is, let's say we want to send this guitar to a group track. Right, my group track's down here. I go to guitar, highlight that, go to stereo output, and here is where, if you have a multi-output interface like I was using in the last stream, here is where you'll be able to select between your multiple outputs. But today I'm just using my iRig Pro Duo, and so we've only got the option of outputs 1 and 2. But here there's another tab, group tracks. Select the group track I want to send the guitar to, and there we are. Right, so now if I go to my mixing desk, and you can see the guitar coming out of the group track. Oh yeah, simple as that. Right, unsolo that, and now I can get rid of the group track. Take all the mutes off. Actually, I was wondering, a couple of streams ago, I showed how you can, in the mixer, use this global strip here to take off all the mutes, solo everything, mute everything, do like global read and write and all that. And it occurred to me after, I think I forgot to mention that you also have the exact same thing up here, just for mute and solo. It could be handy to have the read and write up here as well. Guess that could be a space issue. Anyway, just checking the chat just to see if anyone's had any more genius ideas. You did, you got a plus next to your notebook. Well done, Semtex. It would be nice if we could collapse the group tracks. Yes, it would be excellent. That's one thing that I absolutely love about Logic Pro for iPad. I think there are things in Logic Pro for iPad that are vastly superior to Cubasis 3, but there are also some things that Cubasis 3 does that it does a lot better than Logic. So for me, if I could just take the two and bolt them together, we'd have the perfect DAW. But as I can't do that, I just keep on at Steinberg with my suggestions. They probably consider it pestering, but that's one thing I have mentioned to them a few times, that it would be nice to be able to collapse groups. Okay, right, I'm going to delete that group track now because I don't need it. What's next on my list of things? I have to have a list, because if I didn't have a list, I would just sit here and go, right, Timestretch. Okay, now, Timestretch, I'll be honest before I start this bit, this is something that I don't really particularly use. It's not the kind of, I'm not saying I would never use it, right? I'm not saying it's, it's not a useful feature. It's just that it's honestly not something that really appeals to me to use. But, oh hey Ed, thanks for being here. So, if I'm a little bit rusty with this, you might just have to forgive me a little, but I'm pretty sure I remember how to use this. So, let's say we want to grab this guitar that I played in. And I possibly should have mentioned, actually, I know the chords are a little bit weird in this track. You may have noticed in my notepad there, they're not basic chords. I'm going through a phase. I'm going through a bit of a crisis at the moment. I'm trying to challenge myself more by by using more complex and weird and wonderful chords, and that's what happened in this track. So these arpeggios here that I played on the guitar, which are very simple, are kind of born out of these weird chords. And yeah, back to Timestretch, you stupid hippie. Let's say we want to grab hold of this guitar and we want to stretch it, right? We want to make it last longer. Let's solo the guitar, right? I go up to stretch here. Actually, I'm just going to take snap to bar off. I go to stretch. Yes, it is, Doug. It is. I'm going to try and remember to mention that. So you can see here, right? It's highlighted the guitar track and it says 100% because it's like currently 100% of itself. Oh, I wish I could think of a better way to explain that. Right? Now, if I grab hold of it, I can make it smaller. I can make it bigger. If I make it bigger, then obviously it's going to last longer, but the pitch will not be affected. So you can hear it's slowed down. Let's slow it down more. Oh, I could take the loop off. That might be a good idea. Now, the more that you stretch it, the more drastically you change the length of it. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. Stupid mouse. Blame the mouse. The more that you stretch it out, the more likely it is that you're going to hear some artifacts in the audio. Let's see what it sounds like now. You can hear it's degraded a little. Now, at the moment, this is a clean guitar. I've no effects on this guitar whatsoever at the moment. I thought I'd use that as a starting point today because I have something to do with that a little bit later. We can make it shorter as well. But, depending what kind of effects you're using on it, then any sort of slight artifacts or degradation you get from changing the time of the original recorded audio could very well be hidden anyway. Maybe I wanted the track to be quicker. Alright, now let's say I want to snap it to a specific bar. Oh, no, before I do that, let me do this. I'm going back to stretch. Hang on a minute. Yes, highlight that. Go to stretch. Right, this is something I want to show you. This Timestretch window that pops up, you can put it wherever you want. Now, when it first opens, it's actually kind of round about here, and I usually find that means that it's right in my way. It's usually obscuring what I want to arse about with. But, you can grab it, you can move it elsewhere. So, Steinberg, this means that you can do floating windows. I just thought I'd, make that point. Now in here, in Timestretch, we have, at the moment, I'm using manual Timestretch. Let's do this first. If I press auto, then Cubasis is going to assess where the peaks are in this recorded audio, and it's going to map it to the bars. It's going to make an attempt to map it to where it best fits. So if I press auto, you'll see it's just put it back to where it was, because when it looks at where the peaks are, you can see, the first note that I pick is right at the beginning of that bar, and so it's going by these waves. So let's imagine I've pulled in a sample that is not the BPM of the actual track that we're working on, right? So at the moment I'm set to 100 BPM. Let's say I've pulled in something that a similar kind of file to this, but it was recorded at 110 BPM. Then the chances are that when you press auto, it would automatically time stretch it, or actually time minimize it in that case, to snap to these 6 bars, right? To make it play in time with the track. I think I could have explained that better, but I think I might have just got away with that explanation. Now, we also have different algorithms to choose from. At the moment, we're set to mobile algorithm. We've got 3 different standards: mobile, efficient, and pro. Now, I've always used pro, and I've never found that it's created me any kind of problem. But it means that, but if you use pro, you're going to get the best possible result out of using Timestretch. It's never caused me any issues. But let's say you're using a less powerful iPad and it's struggling for processing power, then you might want to select one of the other options. So we'll go with Pro. And let's try an experiment. I have no idea whether this will work or not. This is the best part of live streaming. Taking a complete and utter stupid chance that may actually completely backfire. Let's go to snap to bar, right? And we'll put snap to bar on, and then I've got the guitar highlighted. I'll go to stretch. We've got the pro algorithm. I'm going to stretch it out by a bar. Right, so now that guitar it's kind of stretched over 7 bars. Let's just move this marker over here, and we'll just listen to the guitar before I do anything else. Now, of course, it's out of time on my track. Ooh. We've got a MIDI hang thing going on. I showed you how to get rid of this last stream, but just in case you weren't here, highlight any MIDI track, go to routing, press MIDI panic, and panic over. Right, so what was I on about? Okay, yes. Right, so let's just grab this MIDI here, go to stretch, so I can just show you what the options are. Right, so if it's a MIDI part, the only option that you have is the manual time stretch. And we've got snap to bar on, so I'm just going to drag this MIDI out here. Now you can see if I zoom in, that where I've started a new arpeggio on the guitar, a new chord kicks in each and every time. So they're going to be in time to each other. Of course, we're sort of, what can I call it? The chords are hanging over the edge of the bar lines. You could say that it's not in time to the tempo of the track anymore, but this is a method that we could use. There's a better way, I'm going to show you in a moment, but if I do this, and if I can actually, that's it, and one more time. Okay, now everything should be in time again. Now, the reason it sounds a little bit pants is because the bass sound that I'm using here has got some delays on it, and the delays are playing in time to the track. So although this information here is no longer at 100 BPM, but the track is still set to 100 BPM. So that's why it is sounding a little bit pants. Let me show you another way of doing this kind of thing. So we'll undo. Hang on a sec. We'll undo where we change the length of the MIDI part. There. Okay. This is another experiment that may screw up. We shall see. Right, we'll come out of Timestretch there. I'll move this marker back to here. You'll see I've chosen to write a thing that lasts for 6 bars. You know, we normally work in 8s or 4s or 16s. For some reason, this chord progression just sounded great with 6 chords. No other explanation than that for it. Now, in my head, this is going to work. Let's find out. So I've changed the length of time that this guitar part lasts for. And I want to change the BPM of the track to suit that guitar part. And this is all MIDI, right? Apart from this one track here, everything else is MIDI. So that should be possible, right? So let's just go up to the BPM here. And if I just make this a bit bigger so we can maybe see a bit more of what's going on. Hopefully, I think. Right, we'll go up to here. And I'm just going to bring the tempo down. And you will see that audio apparently reducing in size. Now I'm going to scoot in nice and close, and maybe we could move it in a tiny bit further. There. Now it's like a million billionth of a gnat's bollock off of the end of that bar. I think we'll probably get away with that. So let's see now. What does that sound like? I actually don't know what to expect. Right, so I actually prefer it at the old tempo, but it sounds better than the other way I adjusted all the instruments to play in time, because now the delays on that bass part are all now in time with the track and with all the other instruments. So I think that's the way to do it. Now, can I undo all of that? Because I want to go back to the original tempo. Let's I think that'll be okay at that. Let's just try. It sounds so fast now. I guess, you know, it's everything's relative. Okay, right, so that's that. I'm going to move on from Timestretch now, and one of the people who has asked me quite a lot of questions in one of the Cubasis 3 groups has asked me if I could possibly talk about turning a mono track into a stereo track within Cubasis. So before I do that, let's just have a little look at mono and stereo inside of Cubasis. So I recorded this guitar part earlier today. I recorded this guitar part. It's a guitar. It's got one output. Some people get a little confused between mono and stereo. It might sound like a very simple thing, but people do get confused about it. I mean, think of a guitar. It's got one output, right? I guess people get confused because guitars can be stereo and largely guitar effects are stereo or can be. So it's got one output from it, and I plug it into one input on my interface. And so when you see the recorded WAV in the DAW, you just see one of, because it's mono. Let's say I've added some effects to this guitar. I haven't, but let's say I have, and I want to bake them in. So I want to freeze this track so that all the effects are baked in with this guitar. When I press freeze, now Cubasis 3 has provided me with what looks like a stereo track, because there's two of. There's a left and right, but it's not stereo. It's dual mono. It's exactly the same thing, down 2 channels. And that's useless. I mean it's not useless. That's the wrong word. But why do I want that? I don't want that. It's a mono instrument, right? So fortunately, as I have shown before, admittedly, now we can go here with a double click to edit the audio, and here we just press stereo. Do we want to convert to mono? Yes, we do. Right, and so now it's mono again. Right, so now that we've covered that, we'll just undo that. And what I have to say is that the reason a mono instrument like guitar might become a stereo instrument is because of what you plug it into. Like, for instance, I know a guy who he plugs his guitar into his pedal board, and his pedal board, after a series of effects, has 2 outputs, and those 2 outputs go to 2 separate amplifiers, and all his effects, like his tremolo and his chorus and his delays and his reverbs, are all stereo effects. So one side of each effect goes to each amp. So if you've got something that's panning, it's panning between 2 speakers, between 2 amplifiers, and therefore the guitar is now stereo. And you know, a guitar can sound awesome in stereo, so let's do something stereo with this guitar. The way that we would change a mono instrument to a stereo instrument inside of a DAW is by adding a stereo effect to it. So in my insert effects, here I have a tuner, because when I recorded it I needed a tuner because it's good to be in tune. Let's add an amp here. Let's just add a... Why is it you can never see the one you want or remember what it's called so that you can type it in? Faceman. Okay, we'll get a nice little sound with Faceman going on here. I'll just mute everything but the guitar. Solo the guitar. Okay. Let's get a nice kind of slightly dirty kind of a tone going on. To go to the rack and reduce the input, that's usually the way to get a cleaner sound. What's that level like compared to the rest of the track? Right, now, has that made it stereo? Well, strictly, outputs from guitar amps like this, if you were to freeze the track, it will give you a left and right output, it'll still be dual mono because that effect is not doing anything that creates any kind of stereo movement. But if I was to then say add something like, if I was to add, say, what chorus effect have we got here? Let's go with FAC chorus. Now FAC chorus can be stereo or it can be mono. Right, let's go wide with this effect. Now, if you're listening on something decent, you should be able to hear that there's some movement left and right. Now let's just add some reverb to that, just to kind of top it off. I always have to do a silly over the top sound with the reverb before I get sensible. Alright, let's mix that in. Right, that is now a stereo effect. If I freeze that now, we now have, how much can I zoom in on this so you can see? Let's just, I'll do my best. And I'll just go, iPad number 2 has crashed. The iPad that I use as my Stream Deck. Right, here we go. So that's as close as I can zoom in, but you can see that the content of the WAV is different from one side to the other. That is now a stereo sound. But once again, I'm going to undo what I've done because I'm not ready to finalize that yet. Okay. Now, it's time for the guest app. I'm doing these at the end of the stream because I'm very well aware that unfortunately for Android users, they can't use any plugins. So I'm thinking about Android users when doing these streams, they might want to watch it all the way up to when I do the guest app, which obviously is going to be just for iOS people. So today's guest app is going to be Scissor Hands, and I'm going to demonstrate it by adding it to this sound here. So audio units. There we are. Let's have a real good look at this. Okay. So in Scissor Hands, here's what we've got going on. A bunch of presets down here, which actually maybe I should just play you a few of those just so it gives you an overall, just a nice little overview of the kind of sounds it does. A more extreme one. It should have come with a warning. I particularly like this one. Right, but let's go back to default settings, because as always, I'm going to say that, you know, it's not enough when you get yourself an app just to depend on presets. You know, you want to know how it works. You want to take the audio journey and learn how this stuff works. So what we have here is we've got two filters. We can dial in the amount of envelope and LFO and self FM, and over here we can make adjustments to the envelope and we can adjust the LFO, and it's all pretty cool and groovy. So what I'll do is I'll switch off one of the filters, because there's a high pass one and a low pass one. We'll start with the low pass and we'll have a bit of a pissy pants around with it. I'm going to use this control down here, where you see here we've got the dry wet control, so I can kind of back it off in the mix. And here we've got an output level, so you can use this app to gain stage, which I do an awful lot of now. And you can cut or boost the output of the effect. So I'll be using that while I'm talking, basically, so that you can hear me over the thing. Right, so bring back the cutoff. So here it's a low pass, so it's a low pass. So as I bring it back, we cut off the high end. Now, I'm going to just read something from the manual here, because this is just written so much better in the manual than I could possibly put into my own words. Just here is the cue for this filter cutoff. It says Q sets the Q factor, the resonance of the high pass filter. Increasing the resonance boosts the signal at the cutoff frequency. There. A far better explanation than I could ever have given. So let's have a play with it. Now, this control here, the order sets the order of the high pass filter. So if I choose a higher order, it will make a steeper filter. So and I just remembered, if you go in here, you can adjust the text size, which might be good for the stream. There we go. That's better. Why did I forget about that? Right, we've got a drive control here. Let's go extreme. Bring this down a little bit. And that, it is a wonderful sounding distortion. I do like that. I think with the 3 apps that Sketch Audio have released recently, I think that you could argue that the interfaces themselves are maybe a little underwhelming. They could, a few graphics to illustrate what changes to the controls they're doing might be nice. And I know that some people have found it a little bit difficult that the names for the controls are written underneath the controls rather than over. Like, for instance, if I go down here, Self FM, and then that's the control there. Usually they might be written above. I personally have not found that to be difficult at all. Right, now let's shift the envelope. Right, and then we'll make some changes to the envelope. Right, slower attack and a slower release. Now, let's go with a faster attack. With this kind of a filtered sound, fast attack, slow release sounds real nice. As you hear it sort of resonate through. A little bit steeper, I think. A bit more drive. Alright, now let's make some changes to the LFO. And we'll sync it to the tempo of the track. Now, bring it in here. We've got different waveforms for the LFO as well, just here. You'll see we've got triangle, square, and so on and so on. There's a random one at the end. Right, let's just make some changes and get that LFO so that we can hear it nice and clearly. Now, because I've synced this to the track, you'll see down here in a sort of it's a bit grey. It's not that clear, but you can see the divisions. There's 8th notes. Right, now if you take the LFO this way, we get some truly awesome sounds. And we can go truly mental with this app. Now, we've also got a Self FM control. In fact, I think I ought to bring the drive down, just to show you. Just so it's a bit clearer what that's doing. And we'll just bring the LFO. Yeah, okay, let's do that. So you can hear the Self FM, what it's actually doing. There. Let's have a faster LFO now. Right, okay, so for adding some just some subtle strangeness in the background, this is an awesome app, because of course you can, there's a completely dry mix, right? You could just add a little of an extreme sound in, just add a little more depth and dimension to your sound. I like it. Right, okay. Quick play with the high pass filter. Okay, let's talk about this. There's if you want to type in a setting as a numerical value, you press and hold on whatever parameter you want to change, and you can type it in. It's a little bit too sensitive in my opinion, because as you can see it keeps popping up all the time. I'd like the sensitivity on that reduced a little. He said, sounding like a total prima donna and like, who the hell am I? Okay, now let's blend in the two filters. Obviously I've got them both on quite extreme settings at the moment, so it's a bit nuts. But you can always dial it back like that. Okay. Oh, hey Leela. Hi, thanks for being here. Oh, and I missed No Sense. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So, other things that we need to mention about this app, about the user interface. You can match the input to the output level. So, depending when you press it though, will depend. The result, I should say, the result is dependent on exactly when you press it. So, if I press it when you see the dB change there. Really, really nice feature that more apps should have is the A/B setting. So let's say I've dialed in this sound and I think it's an awesome sound. I think it's fantastic. I don't actually, but let's pretend that I do. And I want to tweak it, but I'm frightened of losing these settings. So what I do is I press this arrow here, and that now copies all these settings over to Bank B. I can now go to Bank B. I can arse around with my sounds, change stuff, and then I can realize that the original sound was better, and I can still go back to those settings. So all is not lost. Also in settings up here, we have some links to video tutorials and a manual. Now I'm going to click on this manual because the manual is really, really good. I find manuals quite difficult to follow. I do struggle with that. But this manual, I totally understood it. And I'm going to use it because, here we go, look, Scissor Hands is there. And if I scoot down, I think it's round about page 4. Another thing that I would have difficulty explaining in my own words is what the warp control does. So let's just have a look at that. Warp alters the shape of the LFO waveform. When set positive, the LFO is warped, so it spends more time at extreme values. A triangle becomes more like a round hump. When negative, the LFO spends more time at neutral values. A triangle becomes more like a narrow spike. There. Beautifully put. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little play around with the waveforms and a little play with this warp control so that you can hear what it's on about. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to default settings so that there's less confusion going on and it's clear what warp is doing. Can it modulate between A and B semtex? No, it can't. It's just simply a way of saving settings in case you then change them and decide that you've made a fuck up. Oh, and I also forgot to mention actually the stereo control. I just turned it up, and you should hear some movement left to right, I believe. There we go. Should be hearing something moving left to right now. Now that I like a lot. Oh, that's nice. Right, okay. Now let's see if I can't dial in something that suits my track now. Alright, so I kind of like that. I kind of like getting a kind of an extreme sound going on and then dialing it back, just pulling it back in the mix, and it adds another dimension. And I found doing that with synths in particular, when I'm mixing, rather than adding another synth, if I add something that adds another layer, another dimension to that sound, it just makes the mix sound more interesting and thicker. And the sounds that are not necessarily prominent, the sounds that you might not necessarily notice on a first listen, it just adds more depth. And I really like that. There is something I've forgotten to mention about this app. I forgot to mention that you can switch quality between standard and high. And my iPad's it's an M1 Pro, so it's a pretty powerful iPad. But every other time except for this stream, I've just put it on high, and it's not caused any problem whatsoever. What is it with that bass sound and the hanging MIDI? Okay, anyway, right, so there you go. That's all I've got for you today. Some tips, some questions answered, and a guest app. Over on my Patreon account, there will be some codes for some of these new apps from Sketch Audio. I've asked if it's right for me to have some codes, and he said yes. So I will be asking the patrons which ones they would prefer codes for, and I'll be giving them away exclusively on my Patreon account. Now, thanks ever so much for watching today. I realise I am competing with an extremely important game of football, which means nothing to me at all. But for those of you who join me, thanks very, very much. Really, really appreciate the support. Oh, hey, Jade snuck in. Sorry, Jade. I've been concentrating. I've been I've been trying to keep focused and on point. And as a result, I've not really looked at the chat. Thanks for joining us. Right, so I'm going to bugger off now. There will be a private secret Patreon stream on Friday for patrons, and I will be back next week with another Cubasis 3 workshop, but it will not be at the same time, unfortunately, because at this time next week I will be rehearsing for the shows that I'm doing in Japan. So it will most likely be scheduled for earlier next Tuesday, an earlier time, probably round about lunchtime UK. So I'll advertise it anyway. I'll make sure it's advertised in plenty of time, and I'll spam the entire internet with it like I always do, so that you can set your reminders and not miss it. All right. So thanks ever so much for being here. I'm going to play you out with this very odd bit of a track that we've come up with today. I don't know really whether this is something I'll visit again. Maybe I'll listen to it tomorrow morning and see. And maybe I will just erase it. Thanks very much for being here. Take care of yourselves, make lots of music, and try very, very hard not to pissy pants. Oh, and I've just realised I didn't run an ad. That's 13 streams in a row where I forgot to run an ad. I'm going to run it now. Sod it. I'm going to have to do it sooner or later. Let's just do it. And I don't even know how to do it. I'll just press this insert ad button up here. Ads inserted. Okay. So, I presume now that I've lost some of you because you're watching an advert. And some of you are still here because you are YouTube Prime people. And maybe some of you are using ad blockers, and so you don't actually contribute any revenue to people like me who work really, really hard to make great content for you. How dare you? So if you're watching, how does that work? Oh, Semtex, are you back? Did you see an ad? Was it a good ad? What did you see? I don't even know how long they last, because of course I'm watching YouTube, right? I'm watching me on YouTube on my old iPad just so I can monitor the stream and make sure it all looks okay. And but I've got YouTube Prime, so I'm not getting the ad, so I don't know. Eyebrows and credit card. Okay, so that was the first for me. I've actually run an ad in one of my streams, and it only took 13 streams for me to be able to actually remember to do it. I need to get a post-it or something and stick it up on my monitor. Don't forget to run ad. I'll stick it to this stormtrooper over here, I think. Anyway, right, so once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. Make lots of music. Try not to piss pants about. Be good people, and I will see you later. Ta-ra.